Good evening, everyone. Welcome to our last compassion chat of 2023. Holy smokes, where did this year go? Just like all of them, they fly by. My name is Susan Marshall. I am the author of Mom's Gone Missing: When a Parent's Changing Life Upends Yours. Talk about that a little bit this evening. And your host for these compassion chats. We meet the fourth Tuesday of every month at 6 p.m. Central on Zoom, and have been doing so for now almost 3 years. Holy smokes. We have three primary reasons for bringing these chats to you each month, to our caregiver community. The first is to remind you, you are not alone. The second is to reassure you that your questions have answers, most of them anyway. And then the third is to bring wonderful people who have knowledge, wisdom, experience, hearts full of compassion, to help us kind of find our way through this journey. I am so pleased and delighted to welcome our guest tonight. Stephanie Houston, check this out, you guys, is a senior outreach program coordinator with the Wisconsin Alzheimer's Institute Regional Milwaukee Office. I cannot say that fast. Stephanie provides ongoing assistance to cognitively impaired and medically underserved African-American elders and families. She's been doing this since 2009. In her role, Stephanie consults with families in their homes to develop a plan of care and ensure access to Alzheimer's and dementia-related clinical care and treatment, education, and resources for support. She's a member of the Wisconsin Alzheimer's Institute Dementia Diagnostic Clinic Network, has been a member of an interdisciplinary team for the past 13 years. On top of all of that, Stephanie is the director of the Amazing Grace Chorus. Oh my goodness, Stephanie, I can't wait to talk about that. Before we dive into a whole bunch of things that we want to chat about, we love to get to know our guests a little bit as the amazing people they are. So if you could give us a little bit of your background and what brought you to this amazing work.
Oh my goodness. So for over 25 years, I have been able and just have had the honor and privilege of serving in the Milwaukee community. I've worked for grassroots organizations that really serve the underserved, the marginalized. I've worked with individuals, the homeless population, from work with elders for many years, worked with the aging organization for many years. And actually, it was a director who knew about this pilot program that was beginning in Milwaukee, or had began in Milwaukee, and they were looking for someone specifically to go into the homes, which I was very comfortable in doing. I had also been in the homes as an assistant care manager of an in-home care organization. And so I would go in and set up services. And so, but being involved with the public and helping people to navigate, that has been a part of my service story here in Milwaukee for over 25 years. And I've had the opportunity to meet some incredible people on the journey, understand where people are at in their lives, and just trying to be a support and help people to navigate. And at the same time, it really helped me to develop a voice, and to be an advocate for persons who many times feel like they have lost their way. They need some support. No one's listening to them. No one's seeing them for who they are and their purpose, and just trying to help build people up.
Well, it is an angel's work. There's no question about that. And I have to believe, Stephanie, that just by virtue of some of the services you provide, there's got to be an underlying fear, not only of figuring out what's not right, but what might happen going forward? And am I ready for that?
Exactly. For many families that I now encounter working for the Wisconsin Alzheimer's Institute Regional Milwaukee office, people many times find themselves where they had their loved one has received this diagnosis and they have never had to reach out for support or services, but they find themselves in a crisis. And who do I call? And sometimes it's that connection that we have made with someone who attended one of our programs or during our outreach events. And they say, hey, I have the name of someone, I know of someone, and I'm going to get you connected. And it really is amazing how the community connects people to us. And because I know and I've experienced this all throughout my work career where people have no idea the bumps in the road or the doors closed or the telephone calls not returned. People have no idea what a person has been through before they actually get to you. So when they finally reach me or reach out to me, I like to make sure that they feel most comfortable, that they have my attention, and that I'm here to help and serve them. And so they'll say, so and so gave me your telephone number.
You know,
And
that is such an important point, Stephanie, because as we
yeah.
talked earlier,
Mhm.
oftentimes when you begin to realize that there's an Alzheimer's or dementia thing going on, it's
Mhm.
kind of like waking up in the middle of a journey, right? That may have started quite some time ago.
And that's true. And it's trying to help people to navigate. Sometimes people, they have recognized cognitive changes happening with their loved ones, and they may have been saying to their loved ones, you need to go to the doctor. But it's until we make that visit in the home and we have a chance to have a conversation. And that's, I go into the homes and I'm actually doing assessments. I'm assessing for caregiver burden and strain. And then I'm also meeting with the person. And I had to learn, how can I make this assessment into a conversation so that people feel comfortable? And so I know that they have a story, and then I also have a story. Even though I'm representing an organization, I have a story that I'm able to share with them. And so I also share with them about how our organization was founded by Dr. Mark Sager, a geriatrician who was concerned about people aging and getting connected to health services. And so being able to share that story and then being able to continue to do my assessments, find out what's their story. How did they get to Milwaukee? And people love to share. What I find is that people, when they open their homes, they open their hearts. They're hospitable, and that's just wonderful. And then as we go along in the conversation, and I'm completing assessments, and then we have that opportunity where I can ask them, would they be willing to see someone who specializes in older adult health? And that has been the door open for me to be able to connect them with resources for support.
What I find interesting about that, Stephanie, is you don't say, do you want to talk to someone who can help you understand you're losing your capabilities, right?
Right,
We're
right.
not, we're not pre-diagnosing. We are
No,
simply inviting further engagement. Would that be a fair way to say it?
yes, further engagement. And not only further engagement, but to someone that I know, because that was really important as well. It was very important that when I'm doing a referral, that I could connect them with a provider who really understood the population that we were serving, and that they could see me as well. So interacting. So many times when people would come for their first appointment at the geriatric clinic, I would be able to just go downstairs to the geriatric clinic, welcome them, and be able to sit in on some of their first visit. And then also finding myself also a part of a interdisciplinary team at a dementia diagnostic clinic also helped as well in building relationships.
That's got to be a powerful reassurance to the family, not just the individual. Talk a little bit, Stephanie, if you will, about, our first reaction typically as humans is denial. It's
Mhm.
nothing. I'm just getting older. I'm getting a little forgetful. It's no big deal. Don't worry about it. Talk a little bit. How do we overcome that very natural human tendency?
Well, we know that people have a tendency to be a worried well, but at the same time, when the cognitive changes, when the forgetting, the repeating of stories and statements, and not being able to really carry out your daily living activities, that this has really become such a significant change. So we're looking at, you know, are you able to do what you were able to do maybe 3 years ago or 5 years ago, where we see that it's a significant change? They're no longer able to handle their checkbooks or manage their affairs or take their medications appropriately, forgetting appointments, seeing a change in personality and behavior, having crying spells. These are some things that we always have to make sure that people understand. This is a medical issue, and we need to be able to address it as such. And we need to make sure that people get connected with healthcare providers. But it's the not knowing that what is happening to me. And this is also complicating my my daily life. It's impacting my life. And it's also impacting the ones who love me the most around me. It's impacting their lives as well. So we really need to seek out what is causing these issues.
I think what you said that I had not really thought much about, and that I'm not sure we say enough. This is a medical issue.
It is.
Because when we were working with mom, she didn't want us in her banking affairs. She didn't want us, snooping around in her medications. I'm fine. And I know that part for her was just the sense of, don't tell me I'm deficient. I'm
Right.
okay. But when you frame it as, no, this is a medical change that we're seeing, it
Yes.
has a different feel, doesn't it?
It does. And we need to make sure that people understand that. And there's a lot of stigma that holds people back. People feel that they are losing their place as a elder in the community. And so this is significant as well, that people won't listen to them or value what they say, that this will devalue them somehow. They will lose respect. And so we recognize this, in people. It is the overwhelming fear that you are somehow losing it. And also sometimes the fear that someone may take advantage of you. So we know it is a very serious issue that needs to be addressed.
So, how do you go about educating caregivers, family members, that in fact caring for an individual with dementia, cognitive decline, is very different from caring from someone who is simply frailer perhaps than they were? How do we kind of think about that and then approach the ones that we are caring for?
It's really important that first we make sure that people are able to go and get a diagnosis as well, and then be able to sit down with family to have that conversation with them about, yes, this is different, because we know that there is a progression. people do not really understand the complexities of the disease, how it may impact the person's just daily functions, their behavior, it can be impacted. Um, and this is really, really something that people many times don't comprehend, that there are stages to the disease, that there is a progression, and that in those stages and the progression of the disease, there are things that you are going to have to be very mindful of with your care. You may have to even add additional care, add additional services. And there are some things that you may have to really sit down and plan for. And for some individuals, we really begin to assess how the person who has been diagnosed, how does that impact my life? I've always find it interesting how people they um they it's impacting them. I can't see my loved one decline like this, so I won't visit them or I won't get involved. So this is just some of the things that we see. But one of the things that's really important is that we stress the importance of quality of life, and that there are things that families can do to help support their loved one on this journey. And so those are the things that we really take a look at and really try to speak with family members to find out, yes, maybe you're not the person to do the hands-on caregiving, but maybe you can take out the garbage, or maybe you can run an errand, pick up some medication, go to the grocery store. You could be the manager of the lawn care. There are many roles that family members can take on. There are individuals who need to become the power of attorney of healthcare. They need to be a healthcare representative or a healthcare agent for the person. So there are various roles that family members can actually do in order to support the person living with a dementia. And that's what we really want to stress, is that this is a way that by you being involved, you're able to honor. How do you honor? We need to honor our elders. And this is how I see it. We need to make sure that they are, one, safe at the end of the day. They are safe, they're being well taken care of, and that they have quality of life. And what can you do to honor them as they are aging?
Holy smokes, you just said a whole bunch of stuff there, Stephanie, that I'm thinking as a caregiver, it's like, you know what? I don't want to deal with this. I don't want to grieve the loss, however incrementally, of someone that I love. So if I can do something sort of perfunctorily and then go about my own business, I can continue to deny this. But you spoke of stages. What are some of the behaviors that caregivers should be looking for? And how do we begin to catalog, is a bad word, but keep track of those things that have in fact changed?
The one key thing that we're looking at as well is just their environment. What are the supports that they may need in the home? And things that people can see if the home is in disarray, if they are missing their medical appointments, they're not taking their medications. These are things that we know that are really important to that person's quality of life. We know that driving can become an issue, and knowing when to have that conversation. What are some resources in the community that will help with that conversation as well? So trying to make sure that we're looking out for all of these things that impact their daily lives, and being involved, which is really important. But, some of the key things that I always focus on with family members to look out for is when there are, you see the bills are being paid multiple times. Rent was paid, twice in a month, or there were a number of missed bills. That's when you have the conversation that maybe we need to sit down and do the bills together. monthly as a support and see if they can have that conversation. Trust me, I've gone into the home, to speak with caregivers and their loved ones on these various topics in order to see, because they'll say, well, they were resistant about me, doing medications with them. And so I'll go in and have that conversation and let them know how important it is to their health that they're taking their medications appropriately, and if they would be willing to allow their loved one to, set up the medications. Can you agree to set them up together? So, together, uh, we're able to care better.
I can imagine, Stephanie, that you can ask questions and say things that caregivers simply cannot, either because they're not able on their own to accept what is happening, or because they are so impatient with things mom or dad or another loved one used to do that for whatever reason now they're just not doing. So counsel us as caregivers. How do we manage our own sort of stew of emotion and get ourselves to a place mentally and emotionally where we can sit down and have lucid, kind conversations?
I think one of the things is that we have to realize that the only person that we can control is really ourselves, and that we have to enter, a wise person said and has said many times, we have to enter into their world. And we have to be the ones who are willing to really see how we can be, how can I help? How can I help without being overbearing, without allowing our own egos to get in the way? I've heard some people say the most, I just, it makes no sense when they say, well, he or she is becoming lazy. They're no longer, they're no longer doing their laundry. They're no longer doing this, things that they were once able to do independently. So we definitely have to get out of our vocabulary that the person is somehow just becoming lazy. People in the disease process, they can lose initiation. They can suffer from what is called apathy. And so with them losing initiation to actually get started to do an activity, we have to realize those are things that happen in the stage. And also people don't understand the complexity of how many steps it takes to carry out a task. And so many times people give their loved ones a laundry list of tasks to do, and without celebrating what they are able to do. So that's something that I focus on. We have to focus on the abilities and not the disabilities, and get so disgruntled and so impatient. And what I find is that once people's loved one has transitioned, when you hear a caregiver speak, they talk about, well, I feel so bad. I was so impatient. I just wasn't patient. I felt they should do this, and I hear that very often with caregivers. They feel that they were impatient with their loved ones, or they were short. And you know what? For caregivers, I want you to just free yourself and understand you are human. Free yourself from that. You are human, and that you are just doing the best that you can.
Yeah.
But I find that, I hear that very often.
So we were just talking, Stephanie, before you joined. Sometimes doctors will diagnose, and we found this with mom, MCI, mild cognitive impairment. And what the neurologist in Arizona told us, don't worry about it. It's normal aging. Her day-to-day is not going to be affected. When we knew her day-to-day was already being affected, how do we help doctors understand that, yes, things have changed and we are genuinely concerned?
This is where I also really try to encourage the caregivers. Some of the things that are tools or things that really can help you help the medical staff, medical community to understand when there is a change. I always say document. You need to be specific in regards to the things that you have seen as a change with your loved one. With Alzheimer's and related dementias, there's new terminology that you have to get used to using. And many times, as caregivers, as people, just learning about the disease, they're not familiar with it. And this is where that education into play. But the key thing that I say is that when you notice a change with your loved ones, where they're not able or capable of doing many of their independent tasks, share that with the doctor. If you're seeing changes in mood and behavior, there's agitation, there's aggression. When the evening time comes, there's more confusion. Guess what? There's a word for it. There's medical terminology called sundowning. So these are things that they can understand, but it really does require, and I say this, one of the first things after a diagnosis, connect with places like the Wisconsin Alzheimer's Institute, the Alzheimer's Association, online organizations, your compassionate chat. There are so many places where people can get readily information about Alzheimer's and dementia. And these are perfect places to seek out and get that information as well.
One of the points, Stephanie, that you make frequently is you have to begin to build your village. Talk about that. Who's in the village? What, how, where do I start? How long is it going to take?
That is something that people don't recognize, that actually, when you go to the doctor, your primary physician, he's a part of the village. He's part of your medical community, but he's a part of the village. Whether it's your neurologist, your geriatric psychiatrist, you have a dementia care specialist that you speak with, your support group, they're your village. Whether it's a family member, a good friend who brings over a meal from time to time, you go to church, your church family. These are individuals who are supports to you. Your adult day program that your loved one goes to, they are a part of your village. They help to support you. But many times, because we do the work, we're so involved, we're so engrossed, many times we don't recognize our village. And so it is so important that you make sure that you are connected to people where you can get readily information about an education about the disease, and who can connect you with resources. So these people, they're your lifeline. You're dependent on them in order to be a part of your village. So I help caregivers to identify who's actually a part of my village. And I say, look, I am. These are the people who are supporting you and your loved one, and who are willing to advocate on your behalf.
I think that last part is so important, Stephanie, and that is, I know that many caregivers that I have talked with over the years will say things like, everybody's so busy. I don't want to trouble people. I'm not even sure that I'm seeing what I think I'm seeing. I don't want to bother people.
I know that is something as well, where people feel like they don't want to be, but we want to be bothered. we need to be bothered, because what we realize is that people will go from crisis to crisis without early intervention, early diagnosis, early education, care planning. People run into a crisis. And I would rather meet you at the beginning than in a crisis. But I'm up for the crisis as well. So you can reach out to me too. But what I find is that no person can do this alone. And that is really key. That is why that village is so important. You need those supports. And we do want to be bothered because we don't want to see you in the emergency room. And then you are fatigued, have compassion fatigue, or, you need respite. And that's another key thing is that people sometimes they're like, well, my loved one won't allow anybody else in the home but myself. And so we have to understand that, there are professionals out here that can really connect you with other resources for support, like respite as well. And one thing that I share with my families, I always let them know I have a mother who's in her 80s, and I'm not going to refer you to someone that is not a trusted provider. And so that is really critical too. And so people sometimes don't know what kind of connections you may have with other professionals. And, give us an opportunity, give us a chance in order to work with you and your family.
I think that's really critical, Stephanie. And I think one of the reasons people hesitate is because the healthcare system itself, it feels like you're walking into an abyss. Who's
Mhm,
where? Who cares? Who has time to truly listen to me? One
mhm,
of the things I discovered in the journey working with mom is many times the professional providers don't have a lot of time for kids because there's all kinds of bad behaviors that have happened over the years, right? How do we approach that?
You know, that's something also unique to the medical community. And one thing about the Wisconsin Alzheimer's Institute, we have an annual conference for medical professionals because we want to make sure that people are not only aware of at the advances in research and clinical care and education, but we also want to educate providers on how to appropriately treat and care for people living with Alzheimer's or related dementia. That is really critical. Yes, I have heard terrible stories from providers who have said, tell the family members, there's nothing I can do for your loved one. You can just take them home. They don't talk about medication interventions. Family members leave physician offices without any type of brochures or information. And this is and it's very difficult after hearing a diagnosis such as Alzheimer's disease, and really feel leaving a place where you feel like there's no one out here to help me is really an awful feeling. But I have heard a number of stories over the years of families who encountered medical professionals. And that's why a number of projects that we do um, at our organization is also geared towards how can we help the medical professionals better serve and have a better understanding of the community. In different ethnic groups and racial groups, you know, when they take their loved ones to the doctor, the entire family shows up. They all go to the doctor together. And so, we also need to have that cross-cultural understanding and really really applying just that cultural, we say competency, but really have a better understanding of people from all walks of life.
And I really appreciate you saying that, Stephanie. One of the reasons we decided to start these compassion chats,
Mhm.
there are many, but it is a scary, frightening time. And if you don't really know anything about the illness itself, how it is likely to progress slowly, quickly, we don't know.
Yes,
And you
yes,
don't have a village, the tendency is to isolate because
yes.
nobody understands. And if I have with the primary care physician who's not well versed and says, don't worry about it. He's getting old. Now I'm really kind of at a loss.
And that's why when I meet with family members, I try to find out, because that's something that we really saw during the pandemic, where people had very fragile relationships with medical professionals. It was just overwhelmingly glowing during that time, where we found out that people were not as connected. They did not have very strong connections to the medical community, but some of that also was historically upon mistrust. There is a deep mistrust, and specifically in communities of color, around medical professionals, that people believe they won't get the best care. And so it really is important that if someone receives a serious diagnosis, whether it's Alzheimer's disease or any diagnosis, matter of factly, that you really make sure that you have routine medical care, that there is someone, a part of your village, that will be able to help you navigate. And that's really important. And what we try to do, especially in our community, is make sure that people are connected with physicians who specialize in, aging and elderly care. So that really, really is so important that people get connected. And that's what I try to do. I try to make sure, I ask them, would you want to see a male or a female? And based upon their personality, I get an opportunity. I can speak with the social worker, say, okay, this person that you'll be seeing, and this is their type of personality. Who do you think would be the best provider that she should see? And that is so important. So over the years, I've really established some good relationships where I have that ability to do that and to try to connect people with the right people that I think will put those people, I put them in some good hands.
You are absolutely an angel at work. Where were you, Stephanie, 6 years ago when I needed you? This is phenomenal. I want to make sure we touch on the Amazing Grace course. I have to tell everybody here and who will listen, this is one of the most joyful, love-packed hours you will ever spend in your life. Stephanie, tell us about the chorus.
Sure. So back in 2013, we received an invitation to travel to New York City. Dr. Mary Middleman, she is a researcher who at New York University, who began the first dementia chorus, and her chorus is called The Unforgettables. And so we went over to New York to see that incredible work and met with her team, and they provided the technical resources for us in order to, how do we get this course started in our community? But she was able to provide us with that technical consultation initially, but we were able to, based on how our community, we wanted to frame our course to meet the needs of our community as well. And so we knew that we were predominantly serving African Americans in the community. And we wanted to make sure, how could we begin this chorus? And really, to tell you, the chorus idea in itself is powerful. It's impactful. But what's even also that makes this work so special is that we actually use the chorus and its program as a tool to provide services, to connect families with other resources. And it has been so moving. It has been so impactful to our lives that we're able to provide a program at no cost to families in the community. Bader Philanthropies, Inc. has been a major sponsor of the work that we get to do, and we've had other private donors. But the families, they are the ones who are so amazing because they will bring their loved ones to the chorus from week to week in order to really see this light that comes from them participating together. The really with the basis of the course is really to improve the quality of life of people living with dementia. You don't have to be a professional singer. That's not the purpose of it. It's really to engage people on something that people love music. Everybody, music is universal. It's inspiring. But the benefits of people who are able to participate, it's uplifting. The music, we always try to make sure that we're selecting musical selections that are inspiring, that bring back memories, that bring hope and joy. And it's unique because it's something that whether the care partner, family member, or friend, they can do with their loved one. Many times people will go to an adult day program and their loved one goes by themselves, but this is something that they can do with their loved one, and to really see the joy, to see the transformation. And this is Tuesday. I always say Transformative Tuesday. We are in the business of transforming lives, of reaching people at a level, and that's something to be a part of the work. And I can't say enough. We have some of the most talented, phenomenal conductors, Mr. Maurice Cotton, Kevin Casey Williams, Mr. Vante Jones, Mr. Jeffrey Clare, Mr. Joe Nathaniel Jr., and also one of our conductors who transitioned, Miss Arlene Skorowski. They have all had an imprint on helping to change the lives of these families who come through, and they are exactly like their name, Amazing Grace. And I am so honored and so humbled that this is the way that we get to serve and to bring joy and build our community through song.
Well, I'm going to have been encouraging everyone I know, we've got to come with me. We've got to go see this chorus. How do people get involved with the chorus, Stephanie?
Sure. So people, they can do two things. We also have a chorus website. So people actually can go to our chorus website, the Amazing Grace Chorus, and also they can reach out to me directly. When we began our course, we wanted to make sure that people have an understanding that the chorus is more than just about singing. It's a program. And so we actually go into the homes and sit down with the families. We like to know who's coming to the chorus. We want to know what may be some limitations that they may have. We have volunteers who serve, and this is really important. So sometimes people can have mobility issues. So we want to be aware of that. So we go in and we do just an initial assessment about the chorus. For people to participate in the chorus, we have some life activities of daily living questionnaires that they fill out. And so these are things that are really, so we enroll them. So people are actually enrolled to participate in the course, but it gives us an opportunity to sit down, find out who's coming to the course, and also share with them what they can expect from our program and what we try to provide. And so, yes, so there are people who come in person, and there are people who are virtual partners. So some people watch us virtually, and they can also register to be virtual partners.
It is a remarkable, remarkable thing to behold these people. How long does a typical chorus member stay with you?
So what we say for our chorus members, you are forever a part of the Amazing Grace chorus. And so there have been many who have come and those who have transitioned. But our motto is meet the people where they are. And we also believe that we are on the journey with our families for as long as they will have us to be on that journey. So even once a person's loved one may transition, we still have caregivers who come, participate, and they are forever Amazing Grace Chorus members. So, yes.
That is magnificent. I marveled when I was at your concert a couple of weeks ago at how graceful, patient, and yet supremely organized you were yourself. But how everybody in the chorus understands that we'll get where we need to be. We will sing however we sing. There was just a sense of such warmth and community that, you know what, we are here to do something we all love to do. And by the time that chorus was done, that entire room was going, I want to be part. It was magnificent.
It is just beautiful. Every concert is my favorite concert. I don't have one concert that I say, oh, this was my favorite concert. It just does not happen. Each concert is my favorite concert. And to see for some of the individuals where we see there is more self-confidence, when they come to the chorus program, there is no stigma. People come as they are. The most beautiful music to me is that when we take a break from all of our singing and rehearsing, and you have the chorus members interacting, caregivers speaking with other caregivers or participants, and how are you doing? And everybody's hugging. Yes, come out. I tell people, you're going to get the same thing each and every week. If you come to our chorus rehearsal, we're going to have food for you. We're going to have open arms. It's just such a wonderful, intentional, and we are intentional about making sure that this is a place where people can come. They come, they bring their wealth. That's who they are. There are people who grace our program. They have been professors. They have been physicians, they nurses, educators, veterans, people from all walks of life. And when we come together and lift our voices together, it is just beautiful. It is such a beautiful work, and we are truly honored to be able to serve.
It is truly a magnificent celebration of humanity, right? From The Greatest Showman. It is remarkable. And all of you listening to this, the Amazing Grace Chorus, go find a concert and get yourself there and bring someone you love with you. I could go on for hours, Stephanie, with you. Thank you. I want to open it up to the people who are with us this evening. If you have a question, if you have a story, perhaps a comment that you'd like to share, please unmute yourself. Jump into the chat. I guess we got a bunch of shy ones this evening, huh?
I've got a question. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. So is there a standard progression, or is it different for every person?
In regards to
As far
Alzheimer's.
as far as dementia, Alzheimer's, yeah.
Well, what we know is that there is a progression in stages. So there are people who first, when they are diagnosed initially, who are maybe they are mild cognitively impaired. And so you have they're considered MCI. So they are yet very independent. But they have noticed that there has been a change. There's cognitive decline. Sometimes when people have mild cognitive impairment, there many times they're still driving, they're still doing a lot of activities independently, managing their affairs, being involved with many of their just daily activities. And then you have another stage where people may go from, the mild cognitive impairment where the doctors say, you have a dementia. Sometimes what happens too is that based on the pathology of the disease, sometimes people don't realize that there are over 30 to 40 kinds of dementias that people can be living with. Some people, they can be living with frontal temporal dementia, Lewy bodies dementia, um, pure Alzheimer's disease, vascular dementia, and sometimes those various dementias impacts the persons differently. But we do know that there is a progression of the disease where the person many times will not be able to carry out many of their activities without any type of support. They will need support. They will need more supervision in order to do things. Everything from maybe getting up and getting dressed in the morning, picking out their clothes, to needing assistance with meal preparation or housekeeping duties. They may need somebody to coordinate where they can now, because they're no longer driving, they still need engagement. They may need to go to a memory cafe or adult day program. So many times when the disease progresses and the caregiver has to do more, we see that person who may be in those middle stages of the disease, where you also see it's very difficult for them to, their short-term memory has been impacted significantly. The long-term memories, many times you will find that they can remember things that happened many years ago more readily than they can what they had yesterday for lunch or what they had 2 weeks ago or even going to the doctor. But yes, there are stages. And so you can see where people, when they are in those middle stages, requiring more supervision, more hands-on supports, and they need more coordination in order to continue to live a lifestyle. And then when people get more into what I would say the middle to latter stages, and in those latter stages, the disease can impact the person physically, where people many times they can become total dependent care. And that's where they need someone to completely dress them, um, manage their medications, or maybe the family needs to make also some decisions in regards to, does my loved one at this stage need hospice, or do they need a more skilled nursing care facility? So at the various stages, many times families members have to make some critical decisions. And many times this is something that gets lost in the discussion of, caring for someone who is living with a dementia compared to someone who is just aging in place.
That makes me wonder, Stephanie, if you at some point, at any point, receive a dementia diagnosis, mild, is it inevitable that it will progress to the points that you were just discussing?
It is inevitable that it will progress to those stages. So that is something that we know, that no matter what the related dementia is, it will progress to a stage where the person really become totally dependent on in need of additional care. So this is something that people have to realize, and that's why I say it's so important that people really do get that education around Alzheimer's and related dementia, so that they know that this is a slow sometimes, but depending on the dementia that you may have, it can be a rapidly progressive disease. So it's really important. I hear from people, they'll say, my loved one, they just were diagnosed with dementia. But, if you ever look at some people's, death certificates, it will say that they passed away from complications of, dementia or Alzheimer's. And we also have realized too that sometimes that there is more than one disease in the brain besides Alzheimer's upon someone's death. Mhm.
What this makes me kind of conclude is that while I'd really rather not learn about all this, it would be silly not to. And the more as a caregiver I can learn and understand, the better quality care I'm going to provide, and hopefully keep my wits about me in the process.
It really is important that, and people don't realize that many of the organizations like the Wisconsin Alzheimer's Institute, the Alzheimer's Association, they do offer families care consultations. So at no charge, but there are others who are geriatric care managers that can be a resource. So for families who are willing to also pay for additional coordination and services, I also try to connect families as well to these services because they can be a tremendous support. And with many families, when they are considering other programs, long-term care programs, they many times don't know about eligibility, what will make them eligible or ineligible for services. So we go into the homes when family members want to find out more about Medicaid or long-term care programs. What does that mean? Trying to find out, are there any other resources? Are there any veteran benefits that the families can take advantage of? What are some of the medical resources right there within the medical system that they are working with? Sometimes they're occupational services that family members can take advantage of. Some people, we've had them where they've had a Parkinsonian mix of dementia, and there are other occupational programs, that therapies that specifically target those individuals. So we have to really take advantage of, resources that families don't necessarily have to pay for, and those that, that they really can benefit from. I say it is worth, if it helps you to better care for your loved one, like Susan said, to be able to connect with resources. And we try to do that. We try to help families know. And then sometimes people have limited resources in their communities. And tied to all of our aging and disability resource centers, there are dementia care specialists throughout the state of Wisconsin. So people sometimes don't know that there is a resource out there. So we try to make sure people get connected.
Absolutely wonderful. Lucia, do you have a question? A comment?
No, I just wanted to say hi, really, and just not be the black screen tonight.
Well, that's wonderful. Thank you.
But I mean, I guess one little observation, what we're experiencing now is kind of a shift once we've moved my loved one. Her needs have really changed. So it's just interesting as a caregiver trying to fit into that new dynamic, I guess. What's my role now?
So did you move your loved one into like a facility?
Yeah.
Yes. And so that's another conversation that I have with my caregivers, because I say, now the hat is a little different, but there are some things that you need to be mindful of when you do. And the one thing that anytime there's a transition in living, you may see some changes in personality and behavior. Sometimes there could be anxiousness, some anxiety about being in a new environment. And, sometimes when a loved one gets moved into a new facility and they have behaviors, the facility starts saying, oh, are they a problem? It's like, no, this is typical of a person who is living with cognitive changes. When they move into a new environment, that can have anxiety. This is what and this is something they should know as a facility. So I also speak to my caregivers about, okay, so now they're in a new facility, even in getting prepared. everything from making sure that you are marking clothing, or if you make that decision, you want to take home the clothing to wash the clothing. It does not, when you move your loved one into a facility, you still are overseeing their care as well. So it is important that you go, you know, sometimes break the routine of when you go, just to see, you know, how your loved one is being cared for. And those things are really important that you, when you go, try to find out, you know, how did they sleep? Are they sleeping? I try to say to my caregivers, it really is important that when you visit, that you can really get an idea, a report of how your loved one has been able to transition. But yes, once they do transition into a facility, you take on another hat. You're not doing the hands-on care, but you are also now responsible for also just kind of being able to keep track of how things are going and trying to find out how your loved one is managing. But I think having your presence there is very comforting. But there are also things that you always talk to care givers about as well. So if there is some agitation, finding out, you know, is there a physician who comes? Because many times with these places, they have a physician, a traveling physician who comes into the facility and provides care. And so it's really important for you to be able to meet that person, if that's possible, to be able to share a little background with that person, but then also be able to write out a list for the staff. And even if you want to put up something on the door that tells a little bit about your loved one, what their likes are, you know, their grandmother or their grandfather, things that they like, things that you do with them, that can help care be more manageable. Those are some of the significant things or steps that we miss when people transition their loved ones to facilities. So I always like to talk to my caregivers and let them know, you know, you also have rights. So before somebody say, well, we need to put your loved one on this medication, they need to contact you. You need to be, if there's a change, you need to let that facility know before any changes happen regarding my loved one's care. I need to be contacted. You have rights. You now become, once again, that advocate for your loved one on another level. So those things are very key.
I think you have just outlined another compassion chat 2024 because it's happening with a lot of people. And how do we make that transition, and how do we quarterback if we've been the one used to making the calls? Stephanie, we could talk to you for hours. I want to thank you so kindly for being with us. You are such a joy. Your compassion is just so evident. And the work that you are doing in the way you are doing it, I really think is a model for the rest of humanity. If we could simply listen to one another, share our stories, understand and support, gosh, we could make a whole lot of things way better. Thank you so much for your grace, your kindness, and your incredible knowledge.
Thank you so much, Susan. And thank you so much to the Compassionate Chat community. Thank you so much for allowing me to be here as a guest. And I just appreciate you allowing me to share my story and my experience of working with families and working for the Wisconsin Alzheimer's Institute Regional Milwaukee office. Thank you so much for allowing me to be a part of this moment.
I think we're going to have you back, Stephanie. So
okay.
Thank you, everybody. I want to remind you this chat it has been recorded, will be in the archive at susanamarshall.com, where you can find all of the chats since March of 2021. I want to, in closing, wish everybody a happy, healthy, truly blessed holiday season. And we'll see you next year. Stephanie, again, thank you so much. Bye, everybody.